and welcome to the Fast Forward Show. Today, I'm very pleased to introduce Tony Restell from Social Hire. Tony is an entrepreneur of over 20 years and very excited to have him here today because as an introduction, Tony, you expertly mixed your management consultancy background, your sales background, and then your first one of your steps in your career being with the leading website job site to launch two very successful businesses. One being topconsultant.com, which was sold successfully to the Daily Mail. And now you're the founder of Social Hire. So there's not much you don't know about sales, about business, about recruitment. So I've got a couple of questions for you. And my first question is, what do you think it takes to make a business so successful that it can be sold to a major PLC?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There are several different factors that come into play, but I think the key to it is to put yourself in the eyes of the buyer. And what is the buyer concerned about when they buy a business? They want to be able to look at the financials of that business, look at what you're projecting the business will do and believe those numbers. They also want to be able to see that the business is as risk-free as possible. So for example, a business where one person is the key salesperson to the whole business and it would fall over, if that salesperson or that founder left, that's a far less attractive proposition than a business where actually there's so many processes and things in place that lots of different people could be plugged into that system and it would still carry on working really well. So those would be the main things that I would draw attention to.
Thank you. So just going back on a couple of things you've said there. So you said the numbers and they need to be believable. What can you tell me a bit more about that and what you mean by that?
So, I mean, in the example of me having sold my first business, we were actually approached more than a year before we ended up selling, and we'd been doubling our revenues year on year. And I said, I talked through what we expected for the next year, and they were okay. That's pretty punchy. And you could sense there was perhaps a little bit of doubt in their mind whether that would actually come off or not. And so, we just said, why don't we park the conversation here? We can, have this conversation again in a year. And when we have doubled our revenues again, then we can talk about, what the next growth of the business is going to be with a lot more conviction, because we've delivered on exactly what we said we were going to deliver.
So you actually stood by your confidence in your business to grow to the level that you said, and actually almost turned down the first offer to say, actually, we're going to do this. I'm going to show you and come back and make me a better offer then. That's a very, very bold thing to do. Congratulations. Obviously worked. Yeah. So tell me about the more about not having the one person, that's responsible for all the business, and how you made that work for yourself at topconsultant.com.
I think both in that business and my current business, Social Hire, it's all about putting in place systems and processes and approaches that mean that the business isn't tied to one person. And I'm sure there's lots of small business owners, watching this, and you'll all recognize the temptation to want to do everything yourself because you've got a certain standard you want to do everything to. You feel like the business better than anyone else. And so there's always this reluctance, to hand things off. If you take sales as an example, if you have one key sales rainmaker in the business who's bringing in most of the new business, that's great for as long as that person stays with the business, but it also leaves the business quite exposed to that person, leaving. Whereas if you built the whole business around, and I'm a real believer in this, encouraging as many inbound leads and inquiries as possible, then you can plug all sorts of different team members into that. So, for example, at the moment in Social Hire, I've got several of the team working on initiatives that bring in interest from our ideal clients. And ultimately that funnels them through to having a call with me, or that could be a call with any salesperson we might hire. But all of that work to get those leads into the system and calls booked in with us, I'm not involved with. So if someone external were looking at our business, they go, oh, that's interesting. You know, Tony could be away for 3 months and the leads would still keep on coming into the business really, you know, consistently.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it, actually, because I think everybody knows that the secret to building your business is to hire people to do it for you. But actually, yes, you need to have people that can work in your business instead of you, but you need somebody that can generate the business. And what better way to do it than make sure there's plenty of leads coming in?